Hi, it's my great pleasure to share with you our latest version of Workbench 019. Some time ago we did some user interviews, and one of the things that came up was the complexity in creating the Object Explorer structure. In particular, it didn't seem very intuitive, and they wanted more flexibility in that area. And this new version of Workbench addresses that completely, and it looks great, I have to say. So let me show you the install process. So I've downloaded the actual MSI from the TribeLab site, and I wanted to show you this piece because it will go through a step where it does a conversion of your workspaces. So one thing I wanted to remind you is that you have to install 018 with the hotfix, and you have to open and close all of your previous workspaces to make sure that they're all saved in a patched format, because there was a bug in earlier versions of 018. So that's the first step. So you have to do that step. And now we're going to switch to 019, and that does a further conversion. So let's just step through these pieces. We're going to install in the default position. Obviously a pretty simple install as usual. I had an icon set up down here, so this should fire up the new version, and we'll see what happens when the new version comes up. So we get this dialog box, and we're going to convert all of our workspaces to version 2. So let me click on that. Now, rather than it traverse the whole of your file system, you can just choose to check for workspaces in a particular area. If you have a workspace directory somewhere, you can tick the box for that. Or alternatively, I have the default position of projects here. And so I'm going to click continue. You can select the whole drive. In fact, you can select all of the drives, and it will go looking for all the workspaces, but it just takes a long time. So we're going to cut to the chase here and just do this one. Okay, that's that done. I apologise for the sound of chainsaws in the background, if you can hear that. I'm actually doing this while I'm on holiday in a forest, which is slightly bizarre. This probably all looks pretty typical if you've used Workbench 0.18 before. We have the tool groupings here and a start page which we can close out to show us the desktop, which is the working area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an existing workspace just to show you the difference in the interface. So we'll choose this one here. So you can see that gone are the different data type groupings. So before we had, if you remember, we had folders for network traces, folders for process monitor logs, for other types of logs, etc. Now you are totally free to structure the data in this area in any way you want. I suppose before we go any further, what difference is this to actually just using Windows Explorer? Well, there's an abstraction here between what we have in the Object Explorer here and what actually resides on disk. What that means is that I can group the information together in a way that suits me, not in a way that it happens to reside on my file system. And a couple of other things which are quite useful, which I certainly find useful, is if I move an object from one point of the structure to another, such as moving this trace file, that didn't result in a change in the underlying file system. All of the files stayed in exactly the same position as they were before. And that can save time if you have to move things around a lot just to get them to the position you want them so that you can easily work. This may not seem a big deal, but if you do a lot of data analysis, what you find is you spend an awful lot of time moving data around and grouping it and putting it into folders that suit you for your particular analysis. And that brings up all sorts of issues, such as if you have, say, 8,000 network trace files and you only want to look at 10 of them, do you make a copy of those 10 files and then worry about the fact that now you've got copies of some of the files? Or do you move some of the files and so break the contiguous sequence that you had in the originating folder? And all of these things can create a great deal of confusion. Here I don't have to worry about that. I simply put the objects into the groupings that I want to do the particular type of analysis, and I don't have to worry about that underlying file system. A couple of other things I'm sure you've noticed if you've used earlier releases of Workbench, and that is that now we use the standard icons for the different data types, and these are the icons that match those that you would see in Windows Explorer. So if I look at a PDF in Windows Explorer, that's the icon that I would see. So that helps to improve the intuitive nature of the data. So I hope you find that particular change in the Object Explorer useful. Let's just look at a couple of other things. Let's close this workspace. So just to make you aware of how you create a new project, you do it in the same way as you did before, which is that we do new, we do workspace, we type in the name of a project that we want to work on. That gives us a test project up the top here, and you can see we have a new icon appears here. We can create this still says new instance actually. I think this will change over time. This will have to refer to different sorts of groupings. So I can put in here problem that occurred at 13:20. So perhaps that's my high-level grouping, and then I can just keep adding groups below that. So you can see that it's totally free structured. We still have the ability to do an external data drag, so let's do that. Let's get some trace data. Doesn't really matter what it is. We'll grab this one. I can drag that into here, drop it, and that appears in the grouping. I can move it around so that it's in the correct position. All of the normal things that you could do before, and then I can simply just save my my workspace. So I hope you find that also useful, this ability to just create the structure in any way you wish. So there are a couple of other new features that you should be aware of. The first one is that you can now clone a workspace, and secondly that you can save a workspace as a template. So that means that you can have a structure already set up as a template. You can open it, and that will, or you can open a workspace based on a template, and that will give you the structure you previously saved. So some great new stuff. I hope you enjoy using it, and I'll put out some more updates as I explore this new version myself. Speak to you soon.